Hello, you're watching Jamie from Multiplicity&Me, a channel dedicated to ending stigma on DID. We also have the cat that's come to join us. Say hello, Iris. She doesn't like being picked up. But you need to get down because I'm going to talk about a serious issue today. Come on, there you go. Obviously, as well, this video may be slightly triggering for mentions of persecutory, evil, bad, overall badness. I don't know. So please be aware. I really wanted to speak about an issue that's close to my heart, and that is the idea of working with bad alters. Because of course, on our inner world, I married one that was deemed as such. Before we begin, I need to add a disclaimer that I am purely speaking as an expert by experience. So if you're planning on trying to implement anything that I'm going to talk about, you really should speak to a mental health advisor or mental health professional for further advice and guidance. And these methods have worked for us, but may not necessarily work for other systems out there. So I wanted to do this to not only sort of help other systems, but also for the general public to understand the methods behind the madness, so to speak, you know, why negative alters exist and why they do what they do and sort of how to work with them past that, why really they shouldn't be viewed as something to be scared of or be afraid of.
Sure must be nice being the good guy.
I'm Zangief, I'm bad guy. I'm Zangief. You are bad guy, but this does not mean you're bad guy.
First of all, to understand bad alters, you need to understand that they're only as bad as the whole self can be. This is why the idea that alters are murderous creatures is purely outrageous, because there's only likely to be a killer alter if the overall being and brain they reside into is capable of doing such things. So the overall person would naturally have to be capable of committing an offence like that and harming others. So essentially the DID itself has nothing to do with the way they've turned out and why they're acting in that way. So like Billy Milligan, for example, it's often used a lot in arguments towards us about why people with DID are dangerous, and they use Billy Milligan as an example. I'm like, okay, well you name several more. It's a very tiny amount of people that are affected that go on to commit crimes, and like I said, the fact that somebody has DID and then has done something awful is not correlative. They don't correlate. There's nothing to do with that. The DID doesn't bring on somebody to be murderous or evil. In fact, somebody would already have to be that way. Like, it have to be within their genetics, within their DNA, within their upbringing anyway. So this is why it's nothing like the axe-wielding trope. So I hope this rids some of your fears. In fact, what you often find is that alters that are given this label of being bad are often all bark and no bite, or only harm the body that they're in, not only harm themselves. We've met many systems over the years now since we've been doing this. We've never felt frightened of a scary bad alter. But I need to tell you guys a secret. From our experience, these alters that hurt themselves do it because they themselves are hurting. Now that might be a shoot me down issue right now, because I know that a lot of persecutors out there, that's sort of the... So I know a lot of persecutors out there, that's sort of the last thing that they'd want to be said about them. I get that 100%, I really do. But it's an important realization to make, and I think for us personally, it's been a very, very important step to our healing and to get Ed to heal with us. You know, it's the same as anyone would be if they were turning to things like self-harming or binge eating or dangerous promiscuity or starvation, etc. Even if they may not necessarily realise it. And yes, again, I understand that may not necessarily be the most popular opinion to hear if you are certainly in the early stage of discovering your persecutors and you're in that type of recovery, but nevertheless we feel it's important to be said. So these difficult alters are given the label of persecutors. They literally persecute the self or themselves, and generally do so due to the trauma that they've already been through. So these alters may be inherently angry, frightening, or incredibly sad. They may naturally push people away, of course, come across as aggressive or hostile, and perhaps cut off people and withdraw altogether. This is purely a defense mechanism. In a world of danger, this is how a persecutor has learnt to cope. So this is why Jess was terrified of Ed. Years ago, Ed was an incredibly different part to the Ed that you guys now see on screen. He was our bad alter. He would curse and lash out and threaten, lock himself away, harm himself, and put us in dangerous situations that may trigger or re-traumatize us. Jess didn't know what we know now about alters, and them only be as capable to do something as the overall self. And so Jess was terrified of what Ed could potentially do. To her, the possibilities were endless. If you don't feel you would have it in yourself to do something as a whole, then none of your alters are going to either. But it all changed when 3 things happened. So the first was when a member of the system reached out to him. That would have been myself and Jake. Yes, he struggled, he put up a fight, and he hated it at first, but he soon warmed up to this idea. Building communication with your parts is paramount to stability and safety. So this was our goal in reaching out to Ed. The second was meeting a friend out here. He met his best friend called Joe, who sort of helped him and reassured him in the same way that Jake and I were internally. So having that both internally and externally really did benefit him. And the third and final thing, the thing I believe is the most important thing, was something our diagnostician said to Jess. And he said, Ed isn't a bad alter. No alter is bad. And when you give them that label, that's all they'll ever aspire to be. And I thought that was a particularly powerful sentiment. He told us that every day for 25 years, he had been in that room with different alters every day. Not once did he ever feel fearful. And Jess needed to get out of this same cycle of expectation about being fearful of her bad part and pushing him away as far as possible. Instead, we got creative. Ed hadn't had an outlet before. He didn't know what to do with all this anger, this upset, this feeling of always being hyper-vigilant and on edge and on a, defense and attack mode constantly. So we experimented with a few things. He began to paint and sculpt on canvas and clay rather than on our skin. He learned to beat his fear of food by learning what goes in food and how to prepare it to the standards that make him comfortable, which is why now he's so good at cooking. He learned that a quiet night in to him was far more comfortable than a loud drunken night out where you act up and cause a scene. And most of all, he learned that he didn't have to hurt himself because people had hurt us in the past. He learned that it's okay to feel and be loved. Every day is a recovery day for Ed, but he is doing immensely well and we are exceptionally proud of every step that he takes. His recovery has meant that us as a whole are also recovering. But something else I've come to realise is protectors such as myself and persecutors like Ed share their similarities. Okay, so here is a hypothetical scenario of how persecutors and protectors may work. If you have a parental figure that, say, berates you for your weight, for example, a protector part like myself may keep ourselves safe simply by walking away. But there is no harm in walking away from a situation where you feel triggered and trapped and uncomfortable and upset. Whereas a persecutor may involve themselves in disordered eating because it reduces the likelihood of hearing those comments again, even if they may not realise it. Both parts are looking for a reduction in general harm, but each have their different ways of going about it. Perhaps some more disruptive and seemingly counterproductive ways than others, but regardless, the overall aim is to protect the body as a whole. So my bottom line is that I'm a very firm believer that persecutors are a kind of misguided protector, and therefore we should be very careful about labelling alters as bad or as good when we all have the same boat to sail. Treat everyone in the system with kindness and patience. Whether you're a friend, a partner, a therapist, or you have DID yourself, each part should be treated with respect, kindness and understanding. They may be doing things that they may not necessarily know why, but they feel is right. And it's kind of your job to help them discover that. You may be that person to help them discover that they are more than what they are doing. Because again, all of their learned behaviour is things that they have learned from trauma. It's the stuff that they have learned helps them deal and cope and feel through this process, even all these years later. And this understanding has completely altered the way that we are now working together. I hope you found this segment very informative and helpful. And if you have, obviously, please feel free to like, share, subscribe and comment. That would mean a lot to us. Oh, she's back. Anyway, take care everyone, and goodbye for now. This has been Jamie, signing out.
I'm sorry, you lost me there.
Zombie, bad guy. Hi, Zombie. Zen keeps saying labels not make you happy. Good. Bad. You must love you.
Yeah, inside here.
Whoa, whoa, okay. Oh, all right, I get you. Look out, it's dripping.